All right, welcome to JavaScript Dojo, Lesson 1. Why am I doing this? Well, I created this tool to kind of learn JavaScript, but I also made it to where I can give you access so you could follow along with this exact frame that you're seeing here. What it is it's comprised of a bunch of different lessons starting from the real basics to give us programming concepts for JavaScript. And the cool thing about programming is once you kind of learn one language, you can kind of build off of that and learn syntax from a different language. And don't worry as we go along, if you don't know anything about programming, you just need to learn the basics and kind of take it step by step. Just leave me a message in the comments, I guess, if you want a copy of this dojo, and I'll show you how to just run it from your computer real easily. And you can follow along with that. Today we're just going to go through JavaScript Basics Lesson 1, and then every video I post will basically level up there. And I don't claim to be a JavaScript master, so if somebody knows everything about JavaScript, then okay, leave your comments and that might help us all. And let's get started here. All right, so what we're looking at here on JavaScript Basics, so this little thing I made, basically you'd click on the first section, JavaScript Basics on the left, and we'll just go through it. And so it says lesson, JavaScript is a programming language. It runs inside your browser. That's a neat thing too, is you don't need a bunch of different tools to use as you learn JavaScript. You basically can do it within a web browser. And it reacts to clicks, updating content, doing math, and much more. Every lesson in this course will have you writing real JavaScript. Before we dive into concepts, let's get familiar with JavaScript code and what it actually looks like. So I'm just going to go through this, and if I have any ideas to add, I'll let you know them. Statements and semicolons. So JavaScript program is made up of statements, individual instructions. Each statement usually ends with a semicolon. So we can see on here the little semicolon there. Let x equal 5, let y equal 10, let sum equal x plus y. And it's okay if all this seems like gibberish to you right now, but the main point it's talking about is at the end of every line you see they added a semicolon. That's just part of the syntax, the rules of this programming language. They want the semicolon at the end. And I know JavaScript is kind of, will let you slip by sometimes not using those, but it's best practice to put those at each line. Plus it kind of lets you know, okay, I'm done with this line, on to the next, on to the next. So yeah, this instruction is done, move on to the next. And case sensitivity, JavaScript is case sensitive. That means, if you type my name without an uppercase N or a couple of capitals, they all mean different things to JavaScript. So it's case sensitive. So if you say let my name equal Alice, and you print that out onto the screen, again, we'll get into what console log is, which is going to be one of your favorite tools in the beginning. My name is not defined because you're logging, the name isn't the same that it was written here. And again, this doesn't have to make sense right now, but it's case sensitive. So if you're trying to print out something that you just created, it's going to give an error because you actually put a capital N here and you printed it out differently here. But if you console log my name the way you actually wrote it up here, it works. But let's move on here. So yeah, when JavaScript runs, you can't automatically see what's happening. That's where the console.log comes in. It prints values so you can inspect them, basically so you can kind of see what's going on. And I did make a tool. I'm not going to open it up today for lesson 1, but I made basically where we can see a console, we can type in it and kind of play with it as we're going along. But console.log hello world, console.log 42, and console.log true. You'll use console.log in almost every exercise of this course. Think about it. Yeah, show me what this value is. Show me what it equals. How it works. The console refers to the browser developer tools. .log refers to a method. Again, don't worry about the terminology. Just kind of go along with this for now. You can log multiple items at once. So let's say you let a name equal Alice, let age equal 30, console.log name and age. it would print out in the console ls30. Or combine them into a string, console.log name plus name equals age plus, see all that, name equals Alice, comma, age 30. In our code editor in this course, console.log output appears in the output box. So it'll have a little console where you can play with towards the end during the tests. But it's going to give us a little knowledge test here. What does console.log do? If you're following along and you got this, and if you didn't at this point, again, send me a comment and I'll show you how to get a copy of this really simply added, and there's no cost, it's free. It's basically you just run it through your notepad on your computer and then pull it up in a website or in your browser, and I'll show you how to do that or tell you how to do that. But let's go, I'll give you a couple seconds. What does console.log do? Saves data to a file, prints a value so you can see it, deletes a variable, runs the program faster. Well, we know that it prints a value so you can see it. And that was correct, so we'll continue on. Okay, comments. They're basically notes in JavaScript that the code ignores, so you can kind of type and keep track of what you're doing. So single line comments, see these two little slashes? This is a single line comment. So let x equal 5, semicolon, you're ending the code here, but you can also put a comment after the code if it's specific to your code and you want to remember what that code's doing. Multi-line comments, basically your editor ignores, or the browser ignores these comments, so it's really good habit to add, especially if you're making a bigger program later on or a bigger website or whatever your goal is, to get in the habit of writing comments. So a multi-line comment in JavaScript is just a /* and then a */ and then everything within those two codes basically, or those two items, the browser will ignore. And then let y equal 10. In this case, everything is ignored except for let y equal 10. So let's see what it says. You'll see / comments used throughout this course to explain what each line does. Get into the habit of writing comments in your own code. Future you will thank you. All right, let's see here. So curly braces, parentheses, and brackets. And really this whole course, again, this intro basics is just teaching you basic syntax, which is kind of something you're going to use throughout all of this. And if you already kind of know basics of programming, then this will be really useful for you. All right, I got a phone call and lost my train of thought, but let's keep going here. So the syntax with curly braces, parentheses, and brackets. JavaScript uses 3 types of brackets, each with a specific purpose. You'll see them constantly. Parentheses, used for function calls and conditions, whatever goes inside the input, or whatever goes inside is the input. So console.log, yeah, it has parentheses, and it's calling a function. And we'll talk about functions and everything later on, but just think about the syntax of the actual parentheses for right now. The conditions always go inside of the parentheses. The curly braces, those are going to be really handy. They're for blocks of code. So the body of an if statement or a function, you can put that within the curly braces here. You see that? Again, the notes would be ignored. That's the input between the parentheses, and then whatever's happening is between the curly braces. And then the square brackets, they're used for arrays or lists, basically. And some languages describe it differently, but if you look in here, it's got the brackets, comma, red, green, and blue. So colors can be red, green, and blue. That's called an array. We'll touch on that later. Let's see. A very common mistake is forgetting to close a bracket. So every opening bracket must have the matching closing one. Otherwise you'll get an error. So syntax is really important, and one little character being wrong, and I don't want that to be discouraging, but that can stop the whole program from running if something's not closed. Like if you're doing an if statement and you only have, say, one of the brackets and you forget to close off this one, you'll get an error here. Everything will run before that, and then boom, the program will have an error. All right, let's carry on here. Okay, what are curly braces used for in JavaScript? Well, again, if you have this program or if you've got a copy of it, if not, get it, for the next video, and we'll go through it together on the next one. So, okay, they are for listing items in an array, grouping a block of code together, calling a function, or writing a comment. Well, we know it's not comment. Could it be array? Well, we know the array, even though we haven't touched it, that's going to be the actual brackets. So grouping a block of code together is the answer. Okay. Strings in text, or strings, text in JavaScript. So strings basically are anything inside of, what do you call those? Anything inside of the comments. I mean, not comments. Anything inside of the quotes. So let greeting equal hello. See how the hello is in the quotes? Double quotes. That's a string. Let name equal Alice. It's in a single quote. Single quotes. Let message equal hi. And then all this other gibbly goop for now, but it's called a backtick, and it's a template literal. So later on, you're going to be able to actually define a variable and then put that, actually dynamically call that variable within another string. So a string is information within quotes. So all three will work. Backtick strings, they're more powerful because, again, you can have variables inside of them using this syntax, a $, the brackets, and then the variable name. And it's okay if it doesn't make any sense. I'm going to keep saying that because as you're getting started, this is just showing you just the overview of the basics. So let animal equal cat. Cat is in quotes, so cat is a string. And then you close it off. You end that line with the semicolon. Let count equal 3. Console.log with the backtick for the quotes. Now it's going to let you do I have, that special character, animals. And then so I have 3 cats is what the console will show, or that's what you'll be able to output. String rules to remember. Opening and closing quotes must match. So if you start with the double quote and you end with a single quote, you can't do that. If your string contains an apostrophe, use double quotes. So it's fine. It'll basically, you don't want to mix and match or it won't ever close. So numbers inside of quotes, 42 is not the same as 42. So this is a number in JavaScript or in programming. And when it's inside of the comments, when it's inside of those, that's when it becomes a string versus a number. So this will be like, the program will think, oh, this is text, essentially, even though it is a number. And again, that'll make more sense as you're going through this. So let's see, fill in the blank. Fill in the blank, complete the template literal to say hello Alice using the variable name. So this is a variable here. So let name equal Alice. Okay, console.log, hello, comma. Oh, and then they have those weird curly braces again. So we know that the only thing missing to make this function properly is that $. So that'll basically put the $sign in front of the name and let it call what we've defined here. And the let and constant, I believe we'll get to that pretty quick. So all this will start making a little more sense. But let's check the answer. Okay, that was correct. Ooh, I got extra credit, bonus points. Okay, how JavaScript runs your code. It reads and runs your code line by line from top to bottom. This is important to understand. You can't use something before it's defined. So if you console.log x, but you haven't defined x yet, it gives you an error. X doesn't exist yet. Let x equal 5. Again, these are notes, so the console won't see that, but let y equal 10. So you're saying I'm defining a variable that equals 10 and console log y. Now the program knows that y equals 10. What happens if there's an error? If JavaScript hits an error, it stops running at that line. Lines after the error, they aren't reached. Like when I was saying, make sure to close your brackets. If you don't close your bracket, the next codes won't be reached because it'll have an error in that function or in that call. So let's see here, console.log, line 1, it's basically it's a string because you have it in quotes, so it'll run that. Console.log oops, it thinks that's a variable that you defined as oops. It won't run and it'll stop because you haven't defined a variable called oops. Console.log line 3 would be never reached because you had the error here. So it goes from top down. White spaces mostly don't matter in JavaScript. So on this first line, you see how they did let a, so they created a variable that equals 1, and then they have the semicolon, and then let b equal 2, so a variable that equals 2, b equals 2, and a semicolon. It's hard to read, but if you do it on separate lines, it does the same thing, but the white space doesn't matter. So it's better to organize from top down, and then the code knows when it hits the semicolon to go to the next line, and the notes are ignored. So JavaScript runs your code in random order, bottom to top, line by line, top to bottom, or all at once simultaneously. What do you think? All right, line by line. So continue. Okay, code challenge. Let's see here. Time to practice. Write 3 console.log statements. Log your name as a string, log the number 2024, and log a template literal that says JavaScript is fun. Okay, well, we can ignore the notes, I guess. Yeah, we'll ignore the notes. And this is kind of the cool part when you say run code. The console.log here needs 3 console.log calls to get it. So it'll give you kind of a little console for the output. So I'm going to make this easy and just copy and paste the console because I know I'm going to need 3 of those. So 1, 2, 3, 3 console.logs. And the first one, it says log your name as a string. And remember, strings are always in quotations. And in this case, I like using double quotes. But then obviously the tick will be very valuable. But we'll log the name as a string. So my name's Kevin. And console.log. It says it wants the number 2024, and we don't want it as a string. So, all right, I had a glitch on the recording, and I hope it left off right here. So the console, my whole point that I was going over, and if I already talked about this, I'll try to edit this out, but if there's quotes, the program in the background will print it out properly because it's console logging a string. So 2024, oh, it looks the same as if I were to run this code without the quotes, oh, 2024. So it's really only if you're going to do like mathematical equations, you can't have the string added with a number. So right now this is recognizing 2024 as a number. Anyway, that's just syntax. And as we go into the next section, variables and data, actually it'll show us what let x equals what means. And it will kind of starting to create variables. And that's where the programming knowledge starts. This is just the syntax to make sure we don't get errors and kind of know how to punctuate things and just real entry-level basics. So the next one will be more fun. Again, get the program from me, put a comment, I'll explain how to do it. Really, it's just putting it into a notepad and then opening that in a browser, and it'll save your progress as you go. So if I were to open this again when I go to record the second one for the variables, it's going to pick right up where I left off. And so we'll go next variables and data, or see dashboard. So dashboard, we've got this one complete. Next time we'll hit variables. And alrighty, so I hope you found that useful. And programming's fun. It can be stressful, but if you just learn some basics in some language, it's kind of nice because even in the future where AI is writing all the programs, if you know some code structure and kind of what you're doing, you can modify it, fix the color schemes without having to have AI rewrite everything. So even if you see a future where programming is less done by humans, it's always going to need your touch, your flavor, and if you understand basics of programming, you'll be able to fix those things in a way that a robot wouldn't be able to. I say robot, but all right. I'm not as, I'm not a pro in programming. I'm just someone who's learning. And I hope you are too. Until next time, let's have fun, and I'll see you for lesson number 2. Bye-bye.